Morning, friends. Ash here, WAT News, with an election update. It is November the 30th, 2020. And as you saw, I don't know if you guys were watching, there was a big Georgia update. Judge issues restraining order for 10 days, preventing defendants from destroying or erasing Dominion voting machines. Judge Timothy C. Batten Sr. issued an order on Sunday morning to freeze all Dominion voting machines in the state of Georgia. Via Attorney Lynn Wood, defendants are ordered to maintain the status quo and are temporarily enjoined from wiping or resetting any voting machines in the state of Georgia until further order of the court. Emergency order just entered by Judge Timothy Batten Sr. Defendants are ordered to maintain the status quo and are temporarily enjoined from wiping or resetting any voting machines in the state of Georgia until further order of the court. Then later that afternoon, Judge Batten reversed claim later today based on the defendant's claim that Georgia counties controlled the Dominion voting machines. What? Judge reversed order based on defendant's claim that Georgia counties control voting machines. Now this, at 10:10 p.m. on Sunday night, Judge Timothy Batten again issued a temporary restraining order for 10 days against the destruction of evidence. So what's going on here, right? This judge is going back and forth and back and forth. He issues one thing and then he doesn't, and then he does it again. So you can see that there's a lot of pressure being brought to bear on Georgia right now, because there's obviously, in my mind, forces at work that do not want this to be counted correctly, because in my view, if it's counted correctly, there's going to possibly be a lot of votes in there that don't belong in there. So we'll have to see how this whole situation plays out. Here's another article out of Just the News about that. Federal judge reapproves emergency order blocking Georgia from wiping state voting machines. The order is part of Sidney Powell's ongoing lawsuit. Federal judge issued a temporary restraining order late Sunday night, barring Georgia election officials from resetting or otherwise altering Dominion voting systems, machines used during the November presidential election. The order was issued as part of Attorney Sidney Powell's ongoing election lawsuit in Georgia, and was the third emergency order issued Sunday night to ensure voting machines be seized and impounded immediately for forensic audit by plaintiffs' experts, unquote, according to Powell's lawsuit. However, Judge Timothy Batten Sr. told Powell that a request to seize and impound the voting machines failed because the voting equipment she wants to impound is in the possession of county election officials, so any injunction the court issues would extend only to the defendants and those within their control. That sounds like a little bit of a shady opinion to me. I don't know. Plaintiffs have not demonstrated that county election officials are within defendants' control, the judge wrote. Defendants cannot serve as a proxy for local election officials against whom the relief should be sought. Still, Batten told Powell she could amend her complaint by adding election officials in relevant counties to the list, and in the meantime, defendants are enjoined and restrained from altering, destroying, or erasing, or allowing the alteration, destruction, or erasure of any software or data on any Dominion voting machine in Cobb, Gwinnett, and Cherokee counties. According to an affidavit from a Republican poll worker, an election official on November 25th said that the Dominion ballot counting machines were scheduled to be reset on Monday in order to be used in the recount effort requested by the Trump campaign, the deadline for which is midnight on December the 2nd. The poll worker, according to the affidavit, alerted their supervisor due to concern over wiping the machines. Quote, "I am seeing lots of notices from lawyers about possibly impounding the machines. Lawyers are now saying that the machines should be confiscated immediately before this happens to protect forensic data. They are saying those machines need to be impounded ASAP. Yikes, maybe I'm being overly paranoid, but let's be sure this is what we're supposed to be doing," wrote the poll worker. Supervisor replied, "It's what we are supposed to do. It will take a court order to stop this process, so I guess we need to keep watching the news." According to the supervisor, Atlanta election officials have already wiped their voting machines. So, if this is true, guys, it's like you're watching somebody commit a crime right in front of you and wipe the evidence out right in front of your eyes. It's just unbelievable. So I don't know how this is all going to play out, but here's a state that you can tell has already done things that they shouldn't have done close to an election, and now when the election's over and you're trying to count this thing, these people are doing everything in their power, it seems like to me, to stop that process instead of help it. So see how that all plays out. And then we got this, shady Georgia recount in Fulton County delayed by Dominion server crash. So that's interesting. The server went down, huh? When you're trying to count everything. That's interesting. Okay. The recount in Georgia's Fulton County has been delayed due to Dominion Voting System's mobile server crashing on Sunday evening. Officials in the county, which includes Atlanta, said that the server was newly purchased. Technicians from Dominion have been dispatched to resolve the issue, Fulton County officials said in a statement obtained by local station WXIA. The Georgia Secretary of State's office has also been alerted to the issue and is aware of efforts to resolve the problem. Latest incident involving Dominion will certainly not help the bad image that the controversial company has earned. Many Republicans, including President Trump, have pointed to severe anomalies and outright fraud in the areas that happen to have Dominion voting machines. Washington Examiner reports that officials said the vote recount is expected to resume Monday morning. So, brand new server crash. That's weird. Wonder how that happened, right? Alright, so got Dominion in deep trouble. I wanted to cover Benjamin Fulford's page real quick. Like I've said in the past, I follow him, but I take everything he says with a grain of salt. So, and I would advise everybody to take everything you hear with a grain of salt these days, and use your empirical logic and your intuition to help you to make a decision on what information you feel is correct and what people are giving you information that you feel is correct. So Fulford's one of these guys who sometimes has good info, sometimes his info's wrong, sometimes the things he says I feel are wrong. And so I think that part of his thing is that he doesn't see the full picture of what's going on with Trump. He looks at Trump and he thinks he's part of the deep state problem, but he's actually the opposite, in my mind. Let's see what Benjamin says. Troops rally around Trump as final showdown begins November 30th, 2020. Events are coming to a head in the U.S. and worldwide as information warfare morphs into kinetic warfare. Pentagon, MI6, and FSB sources agree. The U.S. military and intelligence agencies are now rallying around President Trump because the citizens of the United States legally elected him, Pentagon sources confirm. The WDS has had reservations about Trump because of quotes we found deeply disturbing. Quote, I came out with vaccines that people didn't think we would have for 5 years, and we have them. They are going to be distributed in 2 weeks, unquote. However, it now turns out, as some readers have noted, Trump, whose own son is a victim of vaccines, was playing 5D chess. Here's the explanation from the Pentagon. The FDA, CDC, DOD, UK, EU, and Trump are aware that the Pfizer, Moderna, mRNA vaccines may alter DNA, cause sterility, or have nanocomponents that can be triggered by 5G. So this may be a trap to arrest the eugenicists and nationalize Big Pharma, unquote. We also got confirmation from MI6 that plans for the vaccine leaked from Canada were genuine. Here, according to MI6, is what Jesuit agent Justin Castro has planned for Canada. And by Justin Castro, he's talking about the leader of Canada, who he alleges is the son of Fidel Castro, by the way. And I don't have information to prove or to disprove that allegation. So just to have that out in the open. The government will try to get all Canadians on universal basic income by mid-2021. Huge supply chain breakdowns and economic instability will be carried out before that to force Canadians to accept basic income. The Canadian military will be deployed in all cities to set up checkpoints and restrict movement by the second half of 2021. Then, once Canadians are miserable and impoverished, they will be offered total debt forgiveness, quote unquote. In exchange, they will have to take the COVID certificate of vaccination vaccination. Those who accept will be given a photo ID to be called Canada's Health Pass and offered basic income and freedom of travel. Those who refuse will be put into concentration camps, unquote. And I don't know about this particular thing, So, do your own research. I know that there's been Chinese troops have been alleged to be seen up in Canada. I know that there's some stuff going down in Canada, but I don't know enough to sign off on this if it's correct. But I have heard that these things are being planned for Canada, and that Trudeau is definitely deep state plan for sure. So, use your own due diligence, Canadians. Do your own research, and find out the truth and get it out there to us, because I don't know enough about Canada to get into it, but I have heard some disturbing things coming out of Canada that this is possibly what they're trying to do with the COVID. Remember, he needs to get a proofreader. Remember, Justin Castro is the son of Cuban communist dictator Fidel Castro. He murdered his own brother in order to become prime minister. And again, I don't know if that allegation's true. Communism was invented and directed by the Jesuits, making Justin Castro a communist Manchurian candidate. That is why the Canadian military needs to cooperate with their U.S. counterparts in order to remove this threat. We are also now certain that Pope Francis is no longer with us. Remember, he vanished for several weeks after the COVID attack on Italy and was only seen as a hologram appearing at his balcony. Now we have a new Pope Francis being promoted in the corporate propaganda media, supporting Antifa, telling people to wear masks, and promoting vaccination. We have tried to contact Pope Francis via the P3 Freemasons, and they say they can no longer reach him. So Catholics, understand your Pope has been replaced by a fake whose words and actions are clearly different from those of the man who we saw before. The Vatican appears to have fallen to satanic forces. General Michael Flynn is now the leader of a joint multinational military operation against the satanic cabal. Pentagon sources say General Flynn described the situation in this way. Quote, "We are going through a crucible of history, and if we do not correct what is happening over the next couple of weeks, this country is done," unquote. And I'm gonna get into the interview with General Flynn and General McNerney in a second. We strongly recommend you listen to the half-hour speech. I got that queued up. The counterattack against the cabal is now fully underway as, quote, "the DOJ prepares for executions by firing squad, hanging, gas chambers, and the electric chair." We are also hearing from CIA, and I can't get the rest about Gina Haspel because you have to log in and register to get that info, and I'm not in there. So, something going on with Haspel. I did see an article, by the way, somewhere that about executions, and that they were changing the way certain states would be allowed to handle executions. So in other words, like, for instance, I believe in the state of Utah, they used to have, or they might still have, several options that the person who is sentenced to death can choose. And there was a big book about that. I forgot the guy's name now. He chose to be executed via firing squad. I think it was in the 70s. Forgot the name of that person in the book, but it was a big story because it brought back the whole argument. Is this should executions be allowed, and on this whole thing. So it appeared from that article that the crux of it was basically that certain states, if they already have on their books laws that allow people to be executed in different ways, then those laws will be allowed, and in other words, certain people will be executed in different ways in some of these states now. It might not just be, lethal injection anymore. It may also involve hanging or firing squad, etc. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. Also wanted to, before I get into the video for a second, or maybe just show you where it is, because it's a long video, but I wanted to include some of it. Matt Braynard, who is a former Trump campaign data strategist, has been contacted by the FBI and asked for his vote fraud research, and he has said that he will be giving that data to the FBI by Tuesday. Matt Braynard, the former Trump campaign data strategist who spearheaded a crowdsourced funded analysis of voting irregularities in the 2020 presidential election called the Voter Integrity Project, announced Sunday morning that the FBI has requested he give them the information on his research. Braynard said he is providing the information and that the transfer would be complete by Tuesday. Update: FBI has proactively and directly requested from me the VIP findings that indicates illegal ballots. By Tuesday, we will have delivered to the agency all of our data, including names, addresses, phone numbers. And I don't know if you guys caught it, but they caught, I think it was 2,000 fake votes in Wisconsin, and they all were signed in exactly the same way by someone, I think it was with the initials MLW or MW or something like that, and all of these ballots had exactly the same signature on it. So, they're finding multiple cases of voter fraud, of irregularities, of injections being, of ballots being injected into the process. You have several states that froze the process of counting in the middle of it, right, which is illegal and never happens. I mean, so there's multiple things coming up again and again and again in all these states that are in play. And of course, you have it going back to Dominion, right? So, I mean, now the Dominion server's crashing in one of the states they're trying to recount. And these people have access to these servers from all kinds of parts in the world. So somebody could have just taken that server down from another location. I don't think you'd have to disable it physically. So, while there's been legit criticism of the actions of leaders of the FBI, of the agency, over the last several years, I can personally attest to the many patriots within the rank and file who are fighting on the side of the Constitution and law and order. Braynard said his team's work has been and is being presented at hearings and in court filings. Update, I'll be presenting the VIP findings in person at the Arizona hearing. Work from the VIP has now appeared or will appear in court filings in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona, including declarations we collected. So, the FBI has asked for this particular gentleman's information, Matt Braynard, and he is going to give it to them. He is going to give the FBI that information. By Tuesday, it should be all in their possession. This is the interview with General Flynn. I guess we could listen to it for a little bit. Let's go back a little bit here.
Committed against this administration, this country, and this president. And General Flynn was a key part of that this threat that we are facing today did. So it's an absolute great honor to have you with us, Mike.
Absolutely.
And we must let America know what's happening.
Absolutely. With that, General, I am just going to give you the floor. I know you're on a cell phone, but I'm just going to give you the floor and let you speak to the American people. Thank you for joining us tonight.
So first of all, I want to just say thanks, Tom, for getting a hold of me and asking me to come on tonight. And Brandon, appreciate you connecting me in. I don't know what your audience is or who we're speaking to tonight, but I would tell you what's happening in this country should never happen. And we are going through, there's no doubt in my mind, we're going through a crucible of history. And if we don't correct what it is that's happening right now over the next couple of weeks, then I really hate to even think about what will happen in our country going forward into the latter part of December and certainly into the next month. I do not believe for a second that the country will accept Vice President Biden as the next president based on what we know to be probably the greatest fraud that our country has ever experienced in our history. I mean, what we're seeing, what I'm right in the middle of it right now, and I will tell you that, first of all, the president has clear paths to victory. They have clear paths to victory, and they actually don't require a lot of courtroom action. What they require is they require a lot of honesty out of elected officials, and frankly, a lot of Americans who are coming forward and telling us their stories. I mean, the hundreds and hundreds of Americans around the country in different states, not just the swing states, but many other states that are coming forward with their stories and putting them down on affidavits as witnesses. We had probably 10 or 12 affidavits come in from one particular state today, and because there's been a number of threats to people, these particular patriots, they sent their photos in with their affidavits and said, put mine up at the top of the list, because I want people to know that I'm not going to be afraid of these people that are threatening our country and our way of life. And so I say all that, and on one hand, and the other hand, as I just described, we have clear paths to victory for this president. And frankly, he's going to win Pennsylvania. He's going to win Arizona. He's going to win Georgia. He's going to win Nevada. He's going to win Michigan. And the other one that he's probably going to pull in is Wisconsin too, because there's a discrepancy in Wisconsin of 130,000 fraudulent ballots that they just found, they just discovered. So there's a lot of things happening, and it's all, to me, it's all positive. I was asked today on a scale of 1 to 10 who will be the next president, and I said 10, it'll be Donald Trump. It'll be President Trump. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind that he won this election, hands down, in a landslide. Probably somewhere between 350 and 400 electoral college votes. What we have seen is over, and I know this, I mean, over the last probably 2 decades, and probably longer, I could, give you a little bit of a history lesson in that, but I won't. But over the last couple of decades, what we have seen is a complete shift in how fast I believe that Communist China, in their long-term plan, decided that to sort of move up their plans to become the global superpower, sole global superpower on the planet. And their sort of plan was by about the middle of this century that we're in right now. And I believe during the last 2016 election, when they didn't get the candidate that they needed and the kind of ideology that they saw America moving towards, they were not going to allow 2020 to happen. And so now what we have is this theft with mail-in ballots, the theft with this software, Smartmatic software, and these Dominion systems. I mean, these are systems that are not owned by this country. They're not owned by this country. They're owned by other. They were introduced into this country. I mean, how can we say, as the United States of America, how can we say that we accept a system that is not made in this country, and not even, and in many cases the ballots aren't even tallied in this country? How can we say that here in this country, that we accept that? The one thing, and for you all and for all your listeners, the one most precious thing that makes me the same as the wealthiest guy or gal on the planet, or the poorest person in America, what makes us equal? What makes us equal is when we go in to a voting booth and we close that curtain, or we go in there and we lean over to vote. My vote matters the same as the guy who's the richest guy, in America. It matters the exact same. That's where we are equal, and that's why this has to be fair and free. And it was not. And we probably, in fact, we know we have evidence of previous elections where this happened as well, but we're now focused on this one. And I'm going to tell you, we're not in this to lose. We are not in this to lose these battles. We're in this to win these battles. And I believe we're going to win. And I'm confident we are, because we have the right people, we have the right plan and strategy, and it's a little bit of direct and a little bit of indirect that we're taking, and people are talking all the time to each other. So I'm anxious, and you probably hear it in my voice, and I'm a little anxious because I just cannot believe the media and the censorship that is going on. I mean, just look at what they do to the President of the United States of America. Look at what Twitter is doing to the President of the United States of America. I mean, it's infuriating to me. It's an abomination of the First Amendment, our freedom of speech. And frankly, for the President of the United States of America, the only means that he really has to be able to communicate is when he walks outside, or he goes in front of a group of people, or he walks outside and talks to the press, or he uses social media to communicate, because the media is not going to allow him to get his message out there. I mean, the major press, not press conference, but the hearing that they had in Pennsylvania the other day, and if anybody had a chance to watch it, I mean, it was an extraordinary hearing with politicians from Pennsylvania, senators on a panel, and the one senator that ran the panel for the state of Pennsylvania that listened to the hearing, listened to a bunch of witnesses, listened to Rudy, listened to Jen Ellis and others on their team. The individual that ran it was a retired military colonel, and he's now a state senator in Pennsylvania. And he gave, at the very end of it, he gave a really good short summary speech, and it was heartwarming because it was sort of a mom and apple pie that, hey, we can't allow this to happen in our country. We cannot, portray ourselves to the world as a third world nation. And it was a really, really good, closing speech. And what did Twitter do? Twitter took him offline immediately. They completely removed his Twitter account, so people couldn't follow this guy. I mean, it's just outrageous. It's outrageous. It's a social media company that is part of the public square. They are taking advantage of what they have been given, which is a real privilege, and they're abusing it. And so, anyway, I could go on and on. I'm gonna stop and just see if you have any questions on anything, or you want to jump in on anything that I said. But I'm upset. I am determined. I'm going to be resilient, and I believe that I reflect millions and millions and millions of people across this country who feel the exact same way that I do.
Absolutely. Folks, we're being joined, if any of you new joining us, by General Michael Flynn. And General, you mentioned in your statement you put out the other day, thanking the President of the United States, you mentioned and you used the word coup. You mentioned we never again should allow this to happen to the American people. You used the word uprooted, undercut, usurped, or held hostage by a coup against our nation. Would you care to expand upon the word coup? Because I know General McInerney has used the word over and over, coup d'etat. I know you're not a man given to hyperbole, so I know that word did not make that into your statement you released for no reason. Would you care to expand upon the use of that word?
Sure. I mean, I think what we experienced over the last 4 years, and certainly in the late 2016, very late 2016 and early 2017 period, was a very strong effort to unseat a duly elected president and really try to remove Donald Trump by just political pressure, by technology pressure, by financial pressure early on in his tenure. Maybe to get him to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna, I don't need this. I'm not gonna put up with it, and walk away. I think that there was some sentiment. In fact, I know there was some sentiment that maybe he'll just, he's the guy from New York. He's not a politician. He'll just say, you know what, I don't need this stuff. I got better things to do, and leave. And thank God that he didn't. And that then lasted. When he didn't, that then continued. That effort continued to go after him in any way possible to remove him through some means, whether it was the fake Russiagate, Spygate, or whether it was the fake impeachment, or some of the other, the kind of stuff that we're seeing with this COVID situation that we're having to deal with now. So that's the first phase, if you will. That was still that's something that's been going on for years. Now we're moving into something different. So and not different in terms of it. This is still a coup in progress, but now it's a little bit different. And it's actually sort of they upped their game. When they lost in 2016, I think that there was a decision, and I believe this, and that there was some type of decision to say we're not going to allow this to happen again. I mean, all you got to do is go back and listen to some of the comments this past summer from some of the senior people that were that are part of this Democratic Party, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton, one being I think it was back in July or certainly mid-summer time frame, where she said, no matter what, Joe Biden should not concede. What are we talking about there? I mean, why would she say that in the middle of the summer, 3, maybe 4 months before an election? So one of the things that I do know from my experience, in the military and in different places around the world is when your enemy tells you that they're going to do something, you better pay attention to what they said, and you better have some plans, and you better have some ideas about how to deal with that if in fact that does come to fruition. Well, in this case, we have opposing camps in our opposing camps of our political parties, and we know that the political party on the left is really way over on the left. Now, I have a hard time calling it or calling someone a Democrat or the Democratic Party. That's a name only, folks, because it's really the Democratic Socialist Party of America that has, usurped and taken over that element, and they are a very loud voice, and so they're Katie bar the door assault on us, on our country and our way of life, and they're doing anything they can right now to try to pretend like, okay, nothing to see here, and Joe's going to be our next president here. And I'm just telling you, it's the level of fraudulent activity, definitely what I would describe as what we have seen and what has been reported to us as certainly criminal behavior. But that remains to be seen, because that's something that would have to be further investigated. But from the civil side of what I know people are involved in, there's definitely thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of ballots. So what happened in a very strategic way is that the electronic vote did not achieve the result that they needed on the 3rd of November, on Tuesday the 3rd of November. The electronic vote did not achieve the result that they needed to be able to get them over the top and get the votes that they needed, because essentially the system was not, the systems were not set up in a way to get the vote count to where it needed to be, and at the same time kind of hiding how they were doing it, mixing numbers and such, and doing it in different ways in different states. So when that happened, they realized, okay, we have to stop. We have to shut down. Unheard of, unprecedented. And then Vice President Biden goes to bed. And they shut down, 5 states that night. Shut down, stopped. How do we ever allow that to happen? And then, of course, over the next couple of days, really from the 4th of November through the 7th of November, we start to see the mail-in ballot, the whole instance of mail-in ballot fraud. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of evidence and a whole bunch of people that have come forward. I mean, there's probably a couple of hundred, and I'm lowballing affidavits, people who have stood up and said, I'm sick of it. And these are Democrats and Republicans. We just got another piece tonight in another part of the country from a Democrat, a woman who's just absolutely sick and tired of what she saw, and she just wasn't sure what to do, and she finally said, I got to go forward, and I got to report this. I can't live with myself. That is what's happening with people who are feeling in their heart that sense of patriotism to still say, look, I don't want my country to turn into something else, because that's what these people want. They do not want our country to be the republic that it is. They want it to be something else and change it, as we heard one president say, we want to fundamentally change America. And that's not what people want. People want to live the life that they have with the liberties and freedoms that we have under this great constitutional republic that we have. So that's sort of where we are, and that's what I mean by that. This is an ongoing effort. It's not the go take the Capitol, go take the radio station like we've done, in the past, in our own history. years ago in Central America or the Caribbean or over in some of these other countries where we've participated or we've supported some of this stuff, or we certainly have watched it in other third world nations. Now it's happening in our country, and we cannot stand for it.
It's a new way of warfare, is it not, General? Is that what you're saying? This is kind of the new way of warfare, and it is cyber warfare. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's cyber. It's a combination of things. It's certainly information. It's information. I mean, it's how you leverage information, how you leverage, the whole thing about psychological operations is you have to make sure that you pick the target and then repetition with the message over and over and over and over has to occur. And it's the only way you can do that in a country our size with all of the ways that we communicate is you've got to basically get the media on your side. And look at how many that's taken some number of years, but I can't stand here and tell you that that's not the case, because it is. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows the quote unquote mainstream media, which is a pretty robust group of organizations, and that includes the tech companies, right? When I say tech companies, the social media tech companies, everything from Facebook to Instagram, of course, Twitter I mentioned. All of these things are just, they are trying to control a narrative and tell the American people what they should know instead of allowing the American people information and letting each of us decide what's important or not.
So it's brainwashing. It's information warfare. It's brainwashing. It's psychological operation. It's those things that you studied and others study when they go through SEER school, correct?
Well, it's more than that. It's more than that. But yeah, it's the type of warfare. And in fact, if you study Chinese doctrine has 6 phases. The first 5 phases all have to do with information. The last part of it would be if those failed, or if you needed an additional, oomph, so to speak, you go to the gates. I say, that's when you may see something kinetic. But we're in this sort of period of information warfare it's unprecedented. I mean, again, I'm gonna stand in my box here and say the president of the United States of America is being censored by U.S. companies. I mean, think about that. I'm at a loss sometimes when I talk about it, and I talk about it, a couple of times a day to different people in different groups, and I'm trying to say, okay, at a certain point in time, we have to, that has to stop being allowed. When a company says what you just said, Mr. President, is not totally the truth, or there's fraud involved here, or fraud hasn't been proven. I mean, how dare they do that to the President of the United States? Because he's not going to get a fair shot, going out into the mainstream media crowd. Look at the interview that he did. I guess it was yesterday, where he had somebody's talking to the President of the United States in his office there, and he had to counsel the person, don't talk to me like that, don't talk to the President of the United States like that. I mean, it's like a bunch of school punks in a schoolyard. You can't have that. We can't have that in this country. I mean, debate and sharp questions, but not totally disrespect to not just the president. You may not like him, and that's fine. But he represents the presidency of the United States of America. He represents our flag, our Constitution, our country. And so actually, everything that we are experiencing right now actually is more than just an assault on President Trump. This is an assault on the American Republic, on this great country that we have, and people around the country. I know they're fed up with it, and they're not going to put up with it. And what they're waiting to see is they're waiting to see the outcome of their own elected officials in the states do their job. And just because CNN or Fox News or or a governor or a secretary of state certify an election. If the state legislature has not certified the election, then it's not certified in a particular state. And if there's a challenge, and there's a legitimate legal challenge, then they can't sit there and certify it while there's a legal challenge ongoing. It's just not the way it works. So the media is not going to cover any of that for you. The big media, they're just not going to cover it. And it's sad because they're trying to shove it down our throat. And the American public, they see right through it.
Well,
I'm going to pause it there, guys. It's a long interview, but I wanted to get some of those major points that General Flynn was trying to make, all right? And I will include the link to the full interview in this video. I want to talk about a couple things that General Flynn's talking about, because I believe he's correct, right? How can you have major companies censoring the President of the United States? And if you remember, what did Obama do, right, after he left office? Well, he went and bought a mansion right nearby the White House, didn't he? He started setting up a shadow government. That's basically what he was doing, in my opinion. I mean, why would you travel to all these countries, right, either before or after the president is about to go to those? You are actively going to meet leaders that the president is trying to lead our country and go meet, and you are undermining the president's message and his candidate, his whole presidency by what you're doing, and everyone could see it. And it's the same thing here with this, in my opinion, with this election. You got people trying to scam this thing and fix it right in front of the entire world while everyone's watching it happen, and you can't do that. And I agree with General Flynn that the rig that they put in, they knew it wasn't enough because so many votes were coming in. And like I said a few times, you can't rig a blowout. You cannot do it. You will be exposed because you will have to employ multiple methods of cheating. And if your vote switching at 3% off the top and it's not working, that means you got to go to 5%, possibly, or higher, right? And if you do that, then what happened before will happen even bigger. Howard votes jumping into the system, 300,000-400,000 votes for one guy at a time, and the other guy is getting nothing or a pittance. So it becomes obvious. You could see it. It's obvious what they're doing. And that's because so many votes came in for Trump that they had to literally freeze the election, literally, in 5 different states. So think about that when you're thinking about if this thing looks kosher to you, right? Because it doesn't. You don't stop elections. You don't go down in elections. You go up in elections. Your vote count doesn't just dip 12, 15,000, 20,000 votes, on the ticker. That's not how it works. So, excuse me, guys. My last point is, Dave from X22 was talking about the fact that he believed that Sidney Powell is working on the criminal aspect of this. And now that Flynn is working tightly with Powell, you notice, you will have to see how that plays out, right? But is Powell and Flynn going to handle the military aspect of this, the tribunals and the criminal aspect of these cases and these people? So I'll have to see how that plays out. What's Flynn's role going to be? But now that he's free, and he's free to speak, which is important, he's going to be a major weapon in this fight, as far as I can see, and that's a good thing. And so with that, guys, I won't do too much a longer video. I hope you're having a good week, and if any more major news breaks, we'll get it to you. And I will include the links to everything in the video. This is Ash, WAT News, signing off.